heritage from Hegel, who worked that out for us. How does it work with Keynesian economics? Really simple. What Keynesian economics does is basically impose on corporations, more or less, constraints, taxes, rules of what you can and cannot do, amounts of capital you have to assemble that is not fruitful for you while you hold it as a kind of reserve, and so on. So the minute Keynesian economics is ever imposed anywhere, the business community that is impacted by it, in the pursuit of its job, which is to maximize profits, goes to work to evade, weaken, or remove the Keynesian policy. And in every example I have ever studied where Keynesian rules were imposed, that's what happened. The last 30 years in the United States, under Republicans and Democrats alike, was the elimination or weakening of the entire heritage of regulations from Roosevelt. Some of you know a little bit about this. The best example is something called the Glass-Steagall Act, which prevented commercial banks from engaging in speculative investment activities. The banks immediately got around that, and by 1999, with our great Democratic leader, William Clinton, was able to get rid of that vote, get rid of that rule, and the commercial banks have been busy in investment activity ever since, with the glorious results that you see everywhere in the world, including here in Greece right now. So this is remarkable. And it teaches us a lesson. So long as the response to an economic crisis pursues a Keynesian rule, it leaves the following in place. It leaves in the hands of every corporation the existing old structure, unchanged. A board of directors, 15 to 20 people, chosen by and responsible to the major shareholders, another group of 15 to 20 people, who make all the decisions. What to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the profits. They will go to work to undo, to evade, to weaken, to destroy Keynesian impositions, and sooner or later they will succeed. That's been the record. And if all you do now is once again impose a monetary policy, a fiscal policy, and regulations, you're going to see the same thing happen again, only quicker this time, because they've had a lot of practice over the last 30 years in getting rid of it. So Keynesian economics has a built-in self-destruction that operates everywhere. Having said these things about how Keynesian policy is a failure, I now want to turn in good dialectical fashion to explain how it is also, but in ways you may not have thought of, a success. What does it achieve? First, and what its defenders like to point to, it softens the effects of cycles. It makes them a little less onerous. It helps unemployed, perhaps with unemployment insurance. It maybe moderates the degree of unemployment, and so on. So it does have the success of making the suffering, the massive suffering of capitalist breakdowns, less terrible than it might otherwise be. Much more important is the function of Keynesian economics in distracting the population. Let me explain to you how that works. When a crisis hits, and I'm going to use the American example, the leading politician, George Bush, Barack Obama, go to work with their advisors and the leading figures in our Congress to worry about the suffering of the unemployment and the home losses, and we must do something, and they have debates, and they're in the television, and they're running around doing all of these things. It's a theater. It's a theater of activity, a theater of concern, and a theater of doing something around the problem. But in view of what I've told you, since they don't solve the problem most of the time, what is going on? Here's my thought about it. This is a distraction, a notion for people to think a problem is being addressed, when the actual solution of the capitalist downturn is the same that it always was before there was John Maynard Keynes or any Keynesian economics. That solution was as follows. When a capitalist crisis hits, it throws large numbers of people out of work. As time passes and the unemployment hurts, these people become more and more willing to work for less and less money. Second, as more and more businesses go out of business, they have second-hand equipment to sell. They don't need the industrial space they used to. They don't need to rent the vehicles they used to. All of those things drop in price as the supply explodes and the demand is shrunk. Doesn't take a genius, although if you've had a training in modern economics, it takes an effort, to think through that if the wages go down enough, and if the prices of all the equipment you need and the space you need go down enough, and if the lawyer is busy looking for a fee and so he'll cut you a deal enough, then the conditions for profitably reinvesting will eventually be created and we'll have the upswing as surely as we do the downswing. This is the way capitalism corrects its own cycles. Keynesian economics, I would argue for you, is an elaborate political theater to get you focused somewhere else on all the work that's being done so you do not get angry about the actual way the crisis is being managed in the traditional cyclical way that throws masses of people into all kinds of social suffering. By the way, sometimes the government is actively helping the cycle solve the problem. And I'll illustrate this by a difference between Franklin Roosevelt's strategy for the Great Depression of the 30s and Barack Obama's. In 1933, the unemployment in the United States hit 25%. 1 in 4 people in the United States was officially unemployed. That's a staggering amount. That's 2.5 times what the unemployment rate is in the United States today. What did Roosevelt do? He went on the radio, unbelievably, it's hard to imagine, there was no TV then. He went on the radio and he said the following thing to the American people. I kid you not, this is a paraphrase, but these are his words, pretty much. The private sector has failed to provide employment to the American people. That leaves me no choice, he said, but to hire people directly in and for the public sector. Between 1933 and 1941, the Roosevelt program hired 11 million people. If you adjust that for the population today, that would be the equivalent of the United States completely eradicating the unemployment in the United States today. Like that. You might be interested in what Roosevelt did. He did 2 major programs. One was called the Civilian Conservation Corps, which had an ecological consciousness. They fixed all kinds of rivers, they improved polluted areas, very interesting. And the other one, even more interesting, was called the WPA. The government of the United States said to every artist, singer, dancer, painter, sculptor, you name it, if you're unemployed, we'll hire you. And the United States government hired all the artists in the whole country who had no work. Put them together in troops, dance troops, theater groups, opera groups, and moved them all around the United States. It brought more culture to the United States than we ever had before, that we've ever had since. It lasted for the 8 years of that program. Now, the interesting thing is Barack Obama is doing what in the way of government hiring? Nada, nothing. No bill, no proposal, no such a thing. And that's interesting. Why? Because Roosevelt had to do it. And by doing it, hiring people, he created a floor. Wages couldn't go down because the government was hiring people. Lots of them. So the irony is, he had to do something that actually prolonged the cycle from going down enough because he couldn't wait. Why couldn't he wait? Because of the Socialist Communist Party and the trade union movement in the United States, which made it impossible for him to wait. If you're not familiar with American history, those were big and powerful institutions in the 1930s. We had the biggest trade union explosion in the history of the United States. Congress of Industrial Organizations, they organized all the major industries, transformed our politics. Barack Obama has no pressures. We don't have a socialist party, we don't have a communist, we have one